Welcome back to the channel, Mike here. If you have a Classic 350, Bullet 350, or the new Goan Classic 350 Royal Enfield, and you got one of these nacelles with that type of speedometer, you're gonna wanna stick around to find a remedy for the stuck speedometer / speedometer out of calibration issue. First things first, you're gonna need a couple of tools. Actually, you're only really gonna need a screwdriver. Be mindful of the type of Phillips head that you have. Screws that are on the Royal Enfield are very close to being JIS, or Japanese Industrial Standard style. They're a little bit more blunt, but any decent Phillips head screwdriver should work, just not one too pointy, because it might cam out of the screws. Next thing you're gonna need is some towels, or I'm using just microfiber. You wanna protect the fender, because you're gonna take the headlight assembly off the bike, and you don't want to scratch up your paint. Next thing you're going to need is some disposable towels, paper towels, or just like an old shop rag. You're also going to need this stuff right here. You can buy this on Amazon. It's called Deoxit. It's an electronics contact cleaner. I use this all the time with other electronics projects because I know it doesn't hurt plastic and it does a fantastic job. CRC contact cleaner will work also. Any type of contact cleaner made for electronics that will remove oxidation from metallic surfaces, like on connectors and stuff, will be perfect for this. You're also gonna need some dielectric connector grease. This is a packet I had open before, which is why it's in a plastic baggie. You could just get this at the auto parts store. It's also called bulb grease, but this is not the same weird looking white lithium looking grease that is smeared all over the connectors in the Royal Enfields. This is proper dielectric grease. This is meant for spark plug boots. And last thing you're gonna need is just an old toothbrush. Don't swipe your wife's toothbrush. This is not Melly's toothbrush. I didn't steal it from Mel. This is just an old toothbrush, but you need it to get in there and scrub the contacts. Put a couple layers of towels down. They don't have to be microfiber towels. They just need to be something to protect your fender. There are 2 screws on either side of the headlight retaining ring. That retaining ring also has this visor on it. Mind you, this stone guard isn't stock. This is a modification I did to the stock headlamp assembly. Just take the 2 screws out. Don't lose the screws. Mike, your fat head's in the way. I know. After you've removed the 2 screws on either side, you should be able to rotate the headlight up this way. It kind of hooks at the top. And it's because of this little clip right here. That's what holds it in place. These 2 screws, the headlight inside of the retaining ring pivots up and down. That's how you aim it. And that's what this bottom screw is for, is to aim the bulb assembly on the inside. So if you happen to notice on the back of mine, your headlight may not look exactly like this. I've upgraded the stock reflector. I think I know the Goan 350 comes with a factory LED headlight, but I upgraded mine with just a standard halogen H4 replacement, and you have to do some modifications to get it to work. So I believe this is a voltage regulator box for the LED, and then there's the wiring harness for the headlamp. Move that out of the way, and I just rest the headlight down here on top of the fender. You can see this is why I put the towels, the microfibers down, so I could rest my headlight on. I don't even have to uninstall it. This is the connector that goes into the speedometer, and this is the guy that you want to unplug. Inside the headlight nacelle and underneath your speedometer assembly, you're gonna see this wiring harness plug right here. And there's this red tab on it. What you gotta do is pull the red tab down with your thumb, and then get in there and squeeze it at the top above the red tab, and then it should release and pop right out. Just like that. You need to clean out with the contact cleaner the connector side on the wiring harness and also the base that is on the bottom of the speedometer assembly. The pins from there and the end of the plug, clean that out with the contact cleaner. You do not have to remove the speedometer to do this, but you do need to work neat because you're gonna probably get this stuff everywhere. It won't damage the paint or anything, but it can make a mess. This is just an old shop towel that I don't use on painted surfaces anymore. Just a couple of these blue shop towels here just to try and absorb any additional spray. The deox, it has a little straw. You want to use that little straw that's on there so you can get it right where you need it, and you'll make a little bit less of a mess that way. You're gonna get in here and you're gonna, well, you're just gonna spray it. Let it run out. That's why you got the towels to capture the excess. Then get in there with your toothbrush and give it a good hearty scrub. Try to smush it in and out of the holes, the pinholes and the connectors. Do this a couple of times. The straw certainly makes this job a lot less sucky. Do that a couple of times until you're sure it's good and clean. Now when you're scrubbing, you don't want to get too aggressive that you bend pins. You know, just be careful with it. But you need to get up in there and spray it out a couple of times. That's pretty good. Now just come in with your paper towels here and clean up the excess. So this stuff, this deoxit, is designed for electronics. So it's not going to hurt it to spray up into the speedometer assembly. It's what it's designed for, to clean up electronics. What I like to do next is I'll actually insert the plug in and out a couple of times to make sure the seats and the pins that are at the bottom of the speedometer housing have had a good chance to work into each other. You know, it does make a positive click, so it's kind of a difficult thing to do this a couple of times, but what you're doing is any built up oxidation that are on either these receptors or the pins that are on the base of the speedo housing, you're basically ensuring that you've cleaned off the oxidation that's there. The last thing I'm going to do here is I'm going to put ever so small a smear, I mean like that much, of dielectric grease, bulb grease, whatever you want to call it. Work it with your fingertips, and I just want to have a little bit on the surface, just a light smear. And what'll happen is if any moisture finds its way inside the connector, this will help prevent corrosion in the future. So just plug up the speedo for the last time here. Push it up till it clicks, and then take the retaining latch, or whatever they call this red tab, and lock it up. And that's going to make sure that this plug doesn't come undone. So the last thing you want to do before you put the headlamp back together and tuck all the wiring away and all that is to just test it and make sure it works. When you click the ignition on, you should see the speedo sweep, and it should return back to 0 if you've done it right. And that's it. So now that I verified that the speedometer is working correctly again, and it does its little calibration sweep, all I have to do is just tuck my headlamp back in here. Now, I have way more wiring than what you would normally have because I've added the Royal Enfield tripper, because my Classic 350 didn't come with it. And then I've also got this voltage regulator box for my LED headlamp. And so I've got to kind of fish all this stuff up in here and make sure I got enough room for the heat sink on the LED light. And then I also got to make sure it doesn't vibrate against stuff and drive me nuts while I'm riding down the road. The key thing is just to make sure the wiring is away from the back of the headlamp and there's plenty of room. If you got to force the headlamp into the nacelle, you've got a problem with the wiring, and you should probably take it back apart and retuck the wires. So then you just line the screws up on the side of the retaining ring for the headlight and just screw it in. Easy peasy. I would recommend that you be very gentle. These screws just thread into threads cut into the aluminum housing of the headlight nacelle. So if you over tighten it or not paying attention to how you're screwing it in there, you can cross thread it and strip it out. And then there's no real good way to repair it other than to try and tap it. Because again, it's just threads directly on the, this is like a cast aluminum housing, and the threads go straight into it. And it's just there to hold the ring in place. It doesn't need to be like reefed down super tight, you know, just snug. I think one day I might replace these with Allen screws, look a little neater. Just a real quick test. On my bike, I have to fire the motor to get the voltage to turn on the voltage regulator. So you'll see the headlight come on here in a second as soon as I fire the engine. See? That high beams, passing lights. Works perfect. And yeah, I upgraded these with LEDs. Actually, the interesting thing is the Goan 350, they come with LEDs up here and a complete LED assembly. So if you know what the part numbers are, that might be a good upgrade for like the Classic or the Bullet to get the nicer LEDs. But on my bike, everything is LED now. I upgraded the bulbs in the factory indicators. They do flash a little fast, but they're not so fast that it annoys me, and I'm not going to put any resistors on there. But that's it. Job done. The Speedo is fixed. I'm just going to clean my my grubby paw prints off of Hazel here from where I worked on. Probably a good idea because you may have, like, you know, leftover dielectric grease on your hand or whatnot, just to wipe it off. Even though I just did this video on this bike, essentially I had actually done this like 500 to 800 miles ago. I just got back a couple weeks ago from a long trip where I put almost 1,000 miles on Hazel here. And I had done that fix before I left, and I haven't had any issues since. I think what's going on with these bikes is that the tin or aluminum or whatever alloy it is, it's not copper, that they use for these connectors for the kind of the square internal pins and the pins that are in the Speedo. I think they just get surface oxidation. And when the bike is exposed to a lot of sunlight and a lot of heat, like I think the week that I started having the issue where it would never get lower than 20 miles an hour. And when it would do its calibration sweep, it would sweep and peg itself and come back to 20 mile an hour. So it was like 20 miles per hour off all the time. What was happening was it was extremely hot. It was like 98 Fahrenheit days here in Michigan for days on end. And I was riding a bike all day long. Plus I had it parked outside at work, and it just cooked the Speedo. And it was only on the super hot days that this had ever happened. And I think if you look at the forum posts, there are people on Reddit, there are Facebook user groups, you name it. There are plenty of people with these J-Series Classic 350 bullets, and even the Goans. My buddy who works at the dealership where I bought my bike from, he's sales manager. He just bought a brand new Goan 350, and it did it too. And you know what? They cleaned the connector out. They cleaned it out just like I did. They sprayed it with contact cleaner. They scrubbed it out. They reseated the connector a couple of times so it's making good electrical continuity. They put a little bit of dielectric grease on a plug. Boom, fixed it. So I don't think this is necessarily something that needs to be a warranty claim per se. Royal Enfield might want to consider looking into making a permanent remedy for that, maybe changing the material that the pins or the plugs made out of that will eliminate that problem. But it seems to me what's happening is when you first switch the bike on, it's doing a resistance test of some type on the signal wires that are coming in from the Speedo. And I don't believe the bike has a separate speed sensor that is just for the speedometer, because there's only one sensor on the front wheel, and that is for the ABS. So it might be picking up that signal from the ABS system. I don't know, because it doesn't say in the service manual where it's getting the signal from. But I know it's looking at some kind of voltage or resistance, and it's going to be really tiny. We're talking millivolts or less. So if it falls outside that range, it throws off the calibration. Probably what's going on is there's just enough of surface corrosion, oxidation, that it just throws it outside of the window of being able to self-calibrate when you first switch it on, and that's what causes like the errors over time. So going forward, I would consider this to be maybe a yearly maintenance item. You get ready to ride the bike for the year, you know, pull the headlight out, clean that thing up, put it back together. If I didn't have to record the video, it would be 5 minutes of work. So it's not a big deal. It'll cost you a can of deoxit and a little pouch of bulb grease or dielectric grease. Either one of those, you should be able to get at an auto parts store. You could certainly get it on Amazon for sure. It's not that big a deal, and I didn't have to claim it on warranty. I didn't have to get a new speedometer. They didn't have to reflash the ECU or none of that business. So thanks for watching the video. I hope this helps you all out if you have one of these bikes. It certainly has fixed it for mine. I haven't had any continued issues with it. My buddy's bike, who just got the new Goan 350, it fixed his bike. I've read on multiple forums and Facebook user groups, this fix will help other people fix theirs. Actually, I thought about making this video this morning because of a Facebook post that I saw with someone else having the exact same problem. So if this helps you out, give my video a like, give it the old thumbs up, you know, subscribe, click on the little bell notifications and all that kind of stuff. It does help the YouTube channel out, and I'm trying to do my best to grow my channel and provide more content in the future. So if this helped you out, hook me up. I sincerely appreciate it. Ride safe.